This is the real-life Pikachu. Nah, but this little guy is a yellow brush-tailed possum. Its golden fur is a result of a genetic mutation that causes low levels of melanin in skin and fur, so it's kinda like albinism. And like any respectable Pokemon, they're super rare, so if you ever see this blonde boy in person, make sure you play the lottery, ask your crush out, find a casino, do all the things you want to do while your luck is still high. They're only found in few places in the world, being eastern and northern Australia and Tasmania, but your best chance of finding one is in New Zealand because they have no natural predators. And as a possum, it's a marsupial, making it related to koalas and wombats. And like a true Australian animal, they're incredibly cute, but they can put you in the hospital because those claws are sharp enough to cause an infection if they cut you. But they're not super aggressive. Their idea of squaring up is just staring at each other with erect ears. The only problem is sometimes they break into people's houses and come in through the ceilings. And if you have children, this will not be good for their mental health. But for the most part, this Pikachu possum is good for your health and scientifically proven to beat your depression's ass if you look at this picture long enough. Share this video with someone that can use more Pikachu possum in their life. Also follow me on Instagram, I'm almost at 100K. Orangutans love their mothers so much that even when they're old enough to live on their own, they'll still go out of their way to visit their mom every once in a while. And this is because of one very wholesome reason. Because remember how I said elephants spend more time with their mothers than almost any other animal? That's because no other animal spends more time with its mother than the orangutan. The mother will spend 6 to 7 years with her child, and the crazy part is she does all this in the trees. Since living on the forest floor is a great way to get clapped by a tiger, every night she'll build a nest for her and her ginger baby. A nest every night means that she'll build over 30,000 beds in her entire life. She'll also show her baby all the best places to find food, and she'll carry the baby around when he's too young to climb for himself. She spends so much time and energy on her child that she only gives birth once every 8 years, and she can only afford one baby at a time. But eventually the baby grows up, and like a kid heading off to college, he leaves her mother behind to become his own person. But also like a college kid, he'll run back to his mother multiple times when he realizes he loves her too much and he's not ready for the real world. And some orangutans never let go because sometimes they'll visit their mothers even when they're 15 and 16 years old. They are the biggest mama's boys on the planet. Wholesome content, you absolutely love to see it. Here's how different animals react to themselves in a mirror. Basically, this is a test to see if an animal is self-aware enough to recognize its own reflection. First are gorillas, and as primates you would think they pass this test easy. Well, fun fact, gorillas are the only great apes that don't always recognize their reflection, and when they don't, they square up with it instead. They don't always fail the test, but when they do, they fail hard. Next we got cats. Your cat can't recognize itself in the mirror, and apparently that goes for wild cats too. Cats actually believe it's another cat in the mirror, which is why they react with aggression or disinterest, and also why they'll sometimes vibe check their own reflection, which means unfortunately they fail the test. Next are elephants. Asian elephants were tested by painting a white X on their cheek and then putting them in front of a mirror. The elephants would look into the mirror and then touch the X mark on their face, meaning they were self-aware enough to realize it was their own reflection they were looking at. Meaning these elephants are smart enough to check themselves out, so these pachyderms pass with flying colors. How animals react to themselves in the mirror, part 2, and the last animal is going to surprise you. First we have dogs, and I'm sorry to say, dogs are great at a lot of things, but understanding how mirrors work is not one of them. When a dog sees itself in the mirror, it sees another dog, which is why they might refuse to stare at their reflection, because in dog society, eye contact can be a threat. Basically, dogs treat their reflection as another dog. They either get aggressive, try to play with it, or they'll ignore it because it doesn't have a smell they can identify it with. But fun fact, actually really wholesome fact, dogs can't recognize themselves, but they can recognize their owner's reflection, proving that they kinda do understand how mirrors work. Not only can dolphins recognize themselves in a mirror, they actually figure out mirrors before we do. Because while we show self-recognition at 14 to 20 months old, dolphins do the same at 7 months. Which is why dolphins actually check themselves out. To prove this, scientists put markings on dolphins, and sure enough, the dolphins would examine the markings on their bodies using the mirror, proving that dolphins are just as vain as we are. And yeah, ants pass too. They put a blue dot in the ant's face, and the ants acknowledge it by touching it while staring at their reflection. They could also tell the difference between an ant from a see-through glass and their own reflection, meaning ants are self-aware and we should all be very worried. Yeah, so I don't know how to say this, so I'm just gonna say it. We now have grizzly bear polar bear hybrids called growler bears. Or pizzly bears. It actually depends on who's taking it from who. If it's a guy grizzly and a lady polar bear, the result is a growler, and the other way around is a pizzly. And like everything else wrong with the world, these Nesquik bears are our fault because the polar bear's home is melting, they have to travel further and further from their normal range. Which means they run into equally down bad brown bears, and life, finds a way. And because nature insists on punishing us, these hybrids are allegedly meaner than grizzlies while adapting to warmer climates, meaning this could be bad for us. But it might be worse for polar bears because these interracial relations could mean that polar bears disappear even faster. Meaning they would be replaced by light-skinned bears that are more likely to take your head off because their habitat could overlap with ours. Polar bears are a walking obituary, but because they have such a specialized role in nature, your chance of getting pulled up on are very, very low. But because growlers and pizzlies are more adaptable than polar bears, this nonsense could wander into your backyard sooner than you think. And since these hybrid abominations are only slightly smaller than polar bears while being more on sight than grizzlies, this could be nature's biggest FU yet. Yesterday was Earth Day, so of course here are animal facts that will trigger you. This is a bear's tapir, and it's packing so much that it can use its beef tripod as a back scratcher, and if you don't believe me, with a 14-inch flex, the tapir is packing more than almost any other animal for its size, and proof that yes, you can know too much about an animal. You can actually see an owl's eyes through its ears. They don't have external ear structures like we do, so instead its ears are basically openings to its skull. So if you part its feathers, you can see how it sees. Acacia trees trees can talk to each other and warn others of danger. If an animal starts eating its leaves, it'll produce a toxic amount of tannin and also release a cloud of ethylene that warns other trees to also produce poison. A lot of scientists believe dinosaurs would behave like large rat types such as emus, which means if they weren't trying to kill us, they would have been trying to f us. If ducks feel crowded or they just become bored, they can become cannibals, and the only way to stop this is to remove the upper part of their bill, which is basically cutting off their mouth with less steps. You don't eat 8 spiders a year in your sleep, but you probably eat more insects with your peanut butter, because they can legally have 30 insect fragments for every 100 grams of peanut butter and sell it to you, but we just call that extra protein. You might think these chicks are cute and you might even want them as a pet. Well, a Florida man did, and you can now find him under a headstone, because when they grow up, they become the most dangerous bird on the planet. This tiny Pokemon is cute enough to fit in perfectly in a room full of plush toys, but you would not want to be around it after it hits puberty, because not only can the Baird's taper grow to over 800 pounds, they have a nasty bite that can take a chunk out of your arm and leave you seriously maimed. And they can be extremely unpredictable, so if this refrigerator with legs has a mood swing, you can end up in a hospital bed. This is one lizard you would not want in your tank. When it hits puberty, it becomes the biggest lizard on the planet, with a venomous bite powerful enough to put a buffalo on life support. And fun fact, Komodo dragons have been known to dig up human graves and eat the decaying corpses inside, and that is negative energy you do not need in your life. And do not adopt these puppies, because they're actually the most efficient killers in Africa. The adult versions have a merc rate of 80%, and when they catch prey, they eat them alive, tearing their guts out while the poor animal has to lay there and take it. Because the African Cujo is the one puppy that'll dog walk you on a leash. Here are some animals you didn't know are in the United States. The Gemsbok is a large antelope normally found in South Africa, but it's made its home in the Tularosa Basin in New Mexico. 93 were released from 1969 to 1977, and with no leopards or lions to worry about, they quickly grew to 3,000. I don't know why we did that, but you can find them in New Mexico. Next, America is home to one of the few venomous lizards on the planet. The Gila monster's venom is extremely painful and can cause your blood pressure to drop dangerously low. Iron Man Coyote Peterson called it the worst pain he ever felt, and he described it as hot lava running through your veins. And when they bite you, they actually chew on you to make sure they release more venom. It's excruciatingly painful, but the Gila monster has never killed a person, and since they're slow and sluggish, they're basically zero threat. Cannot say that about this animal though. Cause yeah, jaguars have been known to cross over to America. Since there's no immigration control for a 250-pound murder kitten, ain't nobody stopping him at the border. Jaguars have been spotted in Arizona a couple times in the last few years, right off the Mexican border. But American jaguars are like humble Patriots fans, there aren't too many of them. They're just really good at not being seen. Kept tagging me asking me to explain, so here you go, meet the sheep on steroids, the Takin. Basically a goat that grew to the size of a cow, and the biggest ones can weigh almost 800 pounds. If you've never seen it before, it's the national animal of Bhutan right next to the Himalayan mountains. When it's a baby, it has to worry about snow leopards, wolves, and bears. But when it hits puberty, they have to worry about it. Even though this blonde ox is big enough to be a problem, they're not naturally aggressive, and in some places they'll even walk up to you asking for food. You still might not want to get too close to them though. Not because they're dangerous, but because males spray every part of their body, including their face, with urine, because nature. So unless you want to pet something that smells like BO and R. Kelly's sheets, social distancing might be the move. They also secrete a musky, oily substance that they use to rub on trees to mark their territory. Takins roll in family groups of up to 50, but the older the males get, the more introverted they become. There's a lot of types, but the one you saw almost fold that man in the video was a golden Takin. They sleep exactly like dogs, resting their heads on their forearms. Just like the giant panda, the Takin is considered a national treasure in China. And I don't blame them, protect them at all costs. The video's fake, but what's real is the hate I have for y'all for making me watch this so many times. As you can tell from the soul-sapped eyes, those fish are dead and probably being controlled by whoever's recording like a sick corpse puppet. Fish don't move like that, and they sure as hell don't bury themselves in the sand outside the water, so they're clearly being manipulated by somebody just outside the camera shot. And after being inside the rotting carcass of 2 fish, even if that eel was alive, I promise you he'd be dead in all the ways that matter. Also, the guy that posted that video on YouTube also made this, and if you think a satanic fish orgy is real, then I have some beachside property I would love to sell to you. So yeah, the video's fake, everything in it's dead, including me, because witnessing this demonic deep throat killed a part of me that was hanging by a thread for many years. Long story short, clout makes people do unspeakable things, and orchestrating a dead fish hentai scene in the very much 4K is one of them. Now I'm gonna go take out my contacts for the rest of the week because I've seen more than enough. I am not Tirzu, but here's an animal that you didn't even realize was OP. Because when you really think about it, the tortoise low-key has everything figured out. Tortoises have a built-in panic room that they can hide in whenever an op presses them, and unlike sea turtles, they can pull their entire heads in. It's a simple strategy, it's low-key camping, but they can survive attacks from lions just by being themselves. And tortoise shells can handle 200 times their own weight without breaking. That would be like the average man having 2 African elephants stay on its back without folding. And since a tortoise's dinner plate looks like somebody's front lawn, they never have to worry about running out of food. Turtles are such a cheat code that they've been around for 200 million years and they've barely had to change anything. And because they're so good at life, they can live for well over 200 years. If you had to choose between being a tortoise or a hare, you should probably choose a tortoise. Being a hare might get you laid more, but it'll also get you laid the rest a lot sooner. Tortoises got it all figured out, and if I come back into this world with a shell, I will not be complaining. Being a tortoise means living life on recruit difficulty, and if I was Tirzu, they would get S tier just for the way to finesse the system. Respectfully.